Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today with another Stamptember 2020 collaboration project. Today I am using the Long Stem Flowers stamp set from Paper Roses. This is a 6x8 stamp set collaboration with Says Stamp, and it is a beautiful floral set. We're going to be creating this slimline card where we're stamping and embossing the images on a dark gray cardstock background and then coloring and stamping and embossing and coloring in with polychromos. I love polychromos on a dark cardstock. And then we're going to stencil over the back to just add a tiny bit of interest. I really want you to see the difference that a really subtle stencil can make in the background. I like to start a project like this by laying out my images so I have an idea where I want everything to go. In addition to the stamp set that I'm using and then the stencil, I did use one of the new Says Stamp Slimline nested rectangles for the panel for the front of my card. If you don't have a die set, you can always just trim it with your paper trimmer as well. This is just so easy because they're made to go with the slimline cards. I also want to talk about why I picked a slimline card for this stamp set in particular, because you can totally use a A2 sized card if you want, and you will be able to create beautiful designs with that. But with these really long stems, it's called the Long Stem Flowers, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to really utilize that long stem on a slimline card? I know I've been sharing a lot of slimline cards, especially throughout Stamptember here, but there's just so many good stamp sets that really lend themselves to this style, and they're very popular right now, and it gives you a different type of real estate, I guess, to work with. I kind of don't want to say a lot more because it is a little bit skinny, but it's just a different type of real estate, which is a fun challenge. Also, in addition to the thank you sentiment that I'm using from the set, the 3 flower blooms and the 3 stems and leaves, I am using another sentiment to kind of tie it all together. I have really been loving pulling from different stamp sets to work with my Stamptember stamp set sentiments. I've done this a few times and I have a few more coming up, but I love that. I don't know what it is, but I've really been into the text and the sentiments lately. And I decided to use a phrase from the Clean Line Gratitude stamp set that says, "You really showed up for me." And then I'm using the scripty sentiment from the Long Stem Flowers. There's also a more block type of thank you. There's the word love in a script, just like the thank and the you. So you could do a love you or thank you, which I like. I like that you can actually build quite a few different sentiments with this stamp set. And there's also a happy birthday. I have to say, I originally really wanted to do a happy birthday with this. I don't know why, but it just kind of didn't work with the design I was using the way I wanted to, but I loved it as well. So some nice options there. And again, I combined these 2 sentiments, one from Long Stem Flowers, one from Clean Line Gratitude. We're stamping everything with clear embossing ink and heat embossing with white embossing powder. You can kind of see that I started with my stems and my sentiment, took those stamps away, and then we're adding blooms and leaves, and we're going to just keep building on that until we have all of our little images here. So let's go ahead and grab those remaining blooms and some leaves, and we're just going to fill in the rest of this. Another thing to note, I am using 3 of the floral images from this set. There is actually another 4 in this set that you can choose to use, which I think is so amazing. So definitely a lot of different cards can be created with this. I know if you guys are like me, the floral sets have really been strong this Stamptember, and there have been so many good ones, and I really think this is another very, very beautiful, good set. And a lot of things can be done with it. I'm using some colored pencils today, but you can definitely color with Copic markers, watercolor. Can you imagine? I'm sure that some of the designers have done some beautiful watercolor things with this. At least I'm hoping so. I love looking at them. You know, all kinds of great coloring mediums for this stamp set. And we're just going to play around here and add in those last few. I really wanted to keep the stamping portion of this in the video today to show how I build all of this, how I use the MISTI, how I build from, you know, kind of the bottom up, if you will, as far as laying it out, seeing what's going to fit on the card, and then stamping each of those components. So even if you don't have dies, you can create amazing card designs. If you don't want a fussy cut, this is a fantastic option. And I know I say it over and over that fussy cutting is not my favorite, yet you guys have seen me fussy cut a ton this month. I say that, but I wonder if it's completely true, because I do love the results you get with fussy cutting. I just don't feel like I'm very good at it. That's probably the main part of why I don't like it, is because I don't feel like I am the best at it. There's just nothing like bright white embossing on a dark cardstock. I love it. I really contemplated doing a silver or a gold, and I just didn't think it would show up as well. And so I opted for white, and I'm so glad I did. Okay, now comes the magic of coloring. I am going to speed this up, but I did leave the coloring in the video, at least for the most part. I think I colored probably all of it. The coloring actually was pretty fast. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons that this was super quick is that I limited my color palette. So the flowers are all going to be the same, 2 colors of red or pink or reddish pink, with a white base. I always like to start with a white base on the gray cardstock because it allows the color to really pop. And 2 shades of green. And that's it. So 5 colored pencils. Definitely don't have to grab loads and loads of colors to still create beautiful cards. And I wanted the flowers and the leaves to be really like pow and really bright and show up beautifully on the gray, and I hope that I've achieved that here. Another tip when using your colored pencils, I'm using POLYCHROMOS, but whether you're using Prismacolor or POLYCHROMOS, whatever you like, I really, really suggest keeping a pencil sharpener handy so that you're always using a really nice fine tip on your pencil. You want to try as much as possible not to color over the white embossed lines. There are a couple places where it happens, but for the most part, I didn't want to color over those lines because I don't want them to be red or green or whatever it might be. The stems were a little tricky, and so there's going to be quite a bit of green on that, I suppose, but it's not going to show up too terrible bad, but you want that white outline. I also found it really helpful to work kind of petal by petal, or I'd kind of work section by section where I do several petals with a white base, and then I'd go in and add my darker red, and then I would go in with the pink carmine, and then blend back over the whole thing with white again. Something else for when I color with POLYCHROMOS, or Prismacolors for that matter, I have both. I have multiple white pencils because it is the pencil that I run out of the most. I use it a lot. I really enjoy coloring on dark cardstock a lot, and so that always means that I'm starting with a white base, and I almost use it like a blender, and I use it up so fast. So I usually keep extras so I never run out. Look how pretty this flower is. Sometimes I think when creating a card, it can take a little bit before you're like, yep, this is working. This is going to look good. This one, I imagined it in my head and it was coming out so much better than what I thought it was going to, which doesn't happen all that often. I had done some other cards for another upcoming video the same day I did this, and those I had to work at a little bit harder. I had a general idea, but I kept trying to do something else, and I should have just gone with my first idea. And so when I got to this part of the day and I was starting this card, this is the idea that I had in my head, and I was like, just do it. Because I again tried to talk myself out of this. I thought, oh, I actually thought I'll do an A2 size card, because my other cards I had done this day had been slimline. And I was like, no, just stick with your first idea. And because I stuck with my original idea, this card actually came together in under an hour. One of the faster cards for me. Most of my cards aren't quite that fast, because I tend to have a lot of detail and probably a lot of steps and things, depending on the design. But this one definitely came together pretty much the way I thought it would, with the exception of I really wanted to use one of the other sentiments. But I say that, I absolutely love how this turned out, and I love the mix of these fonts together, so I suppose it all ended up the way it's supposed to. I've really been enjoying mixing and matching from different companies as well, especially my Stamptember projects, because these are all limited edition exclusives. And so once these particular stamp sets that we're highlighting are gone, they're gone. They're not going to be coming back. I try to share some tips, tricks, and also maybe some other products in the video that aren't going to be going away immediately, that will be restocked, so that you can look at maybe products that you have in your stash. Maybe you have some other florals in your stash that you want to try something similar with. Maybe you picked up the Clean Line Gratitude stamp set and you like how that little font looks with the scripty font that you might already have. I'm hoping that there are things throughout the videos that I've shared this month that will continue to hopefully inspire you to create when you view the video. And I know if you're like me, we all have lots of florals, and so it's always fun to find new ways, maybe a new color combination that you want to try, or things like that. Have just a little more coloring to do. Even the greens turned out so good on the gray cardstock. I was really pleased with that. And I love the little bud. I almost like those little buds more than the full flower. I don't know what it is, but I like the mix of those in with some bigger blooms. Now, once we have all of our coloring done, honestly, at this point, if you like a little bit more clean and simple, pop that onto a slimline card base. Slimline card bases do measure 3.5 by 8.5 inches, and you can call it good. But I wanted to add a few finishing details, so I've got some little clear heart accents. If you guys know me, I love the little heart accents, and I have loads of them. And anytime someone comes out with more, I have to have them because I find myself reaching for them again and again. But this one, I didn't feel like the more bright and playful ones worked. This is a little bit more of an elegant type of card, so we want to use some little clear ones. But before we do that, we want to do some stenciling. And stenciling, or even a background stamp, maybe even a grungy text or other, there's so many stencils out there. You guys probably have some stencils in your stash. This is a tiny dot stencil from Says Stamp that I've had for quite a while. I purposely picked something small. I didn't want it to interfere with the design, and I wanted the sentiment to still be very readable. And I really didn't want to stencil over the flowers. You can see the flowers through the stencil, so I'm just kind of pouncing on a white pigment ink around the flowers. If some gets on the stamp design, that's okay. but I really don't want to full on go over those images. Another tip for picking a stencil, I purposely picked one that's easy to line up. It's not super, you know, distressy. It's a pretty consistent pattern. It's these dotted lines over and over, meaning if I need to take it back to my project, which I did a couple of times, it's easy to do. I can line it back up, and I like that there's some darker areas and lighter areas on the background, and the interest this small little thing adds to the card is so phenomenal. I'm going to put some little dabs of glue on my background. I started with 3 down here by the sentiment. We're going to do a couple of tiny ones and then a medium-sized heart. And they're just those little clear hearts, so they add a fun, very subtle embellishment. And then I ended up adding about 5 more, 3 up at the top because we have quite a bit of white space up there at the top of the card. So we'll add 3 up there and a couple more in the middle, and that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this floral slimline card featuring the Stamptember long stem flower stamp set from Paper Roses. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Says Stamp STAMPtember that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.